Imagine the Justice League, but it's the year 3001. Superman's a cocky jerk, Batman hates being a hero, and Guy Gardner, let's just say pronouns are the least of his problems. This issue is chaotic, colorful, and completely unhinged, in the best way possible. You've got Giffen and DeMatteis bringing back that signature Justice League International insanity, Howard Porter going off on the artwork, oh, and Supergirl just crash-landed into the middle of it all after a 1,000-year nap. You're in for a wild ride, so buckle up and let's dive into Justice League 3001. As Lois Lane, in disguise as Ariel Masters, continues to plot the death of the Justice League, our Leaguers are neck-deep in Starro drones on Wooten 12, where Starro Prime has taken over the entire planet. Anger turns to confusion when a drone informs the team that Ariel has been playing both sides. Meanwhile, a ship crashes down on the planet and none other than Supergirl emerges, though she is no DNA clone. This is the original Kara Zor-El, who has been dormant for 1,000 years. Supergirl easily finds Starro Prime and begins peace talks, much to the chagrin of Ariel Masters. Keith Giffen was one of the writers on the story. Giffen was known for his work on DC's Legion of Superheroes and Justice League titles, as well as being the co-creator of Lobo, Rocket Raccoon, and Jaime Reyes, the second Blue Beetle. Working closely with Giffen was writer J.M. DeMatteis. DeMatteis succeeded Jerry Conway as writer of the Justice League of America. When that title was cancelled in the wake of the company-wide crossover Legends, DeMatteis stayed through its relaunch as Justice League International. The Giffen-DeMatteis team worked on Justice League for 5 years and closed out their run with the breakdown storylines of 1991 and 92. In 2013, he took over DC's Phantom Stranger and launched the 12-issue Larfleeze series with Giffen. DeMatteis became the writer of Justice League Dark in October of 2013, and again with Giffen launched Justice League 3000 in December. Speaking exclusively to Read the Freaking Comics, DeMatteis discusses this series. I loved working with Giffen and our amazing artist on that series. We could have gone on for years. I was very disappointed when DC pulled the plug. This issue cover and interior was created by Howard Porter. Porter's first major run was as penciler on DC's The Ray Volume 2 in 1994. He also worked on JLA with Grant Morrison. In 2006, DC announced Porter would pencil the limited series The Trials of Shazam, collaborating with writer Judd Winnick. Unfortunately, he was unable to finish the series because he severely injured his hand and had to take time out of comics for recovery. Upon his return 2 years later, he became the regular penciler on Titans and was the first artist for the Doc Savage series. He then became the regular penciler on DC's Magog. Letterer Rob Lee has worked on DC's flagpole series like Superman, Green Lantern, and The Flash. His 30 years of experience has led him to become one of the most sought-after letterers. In 2023, he co-funded Ghost Machine alongside Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brian Anderson. Speaking exclusively to Read the Freaking Comics, Lee discusses this issue. Team books always present challenges. Lots of characters, often large amounts of back and forth dialogue, and so forth. From a letterer's perspective, this becomes an exercise in problem solving. How do I fit all the copy? Can I figure out a way to do so without covering vital art? How do I maintain the proper reading order of the balloons in relation to where the characters are positioned? You really need to stay focused and engaged with the story in order to do your part in helping present the story. DeMatteis and the late great Keith Giffen were masters at crafting an entertaining, bouncy story. In their work, you'll find action and interaction, and usually there's a good deal of humor in the mix. Howard Porter certainly gave the readers their money's worth, didn't he? There's a ton of activity, but he handled it all beautifully. I bet he's still icing his drawing hand. By the way, I don't know if Keith did it in the breakdowns or if it was Howard's idea, but did you catch the panel layout design on page 10 that is in the shape of the GL Lantern insignia? Masterful. This issue was edited by Brian Cunningham and Harvey Richards. From 1993 to 2008, Cunningham was editor at Wizard magazine before moving over to DC. During his tenure, he worked on titles like Doomsday Clock, Batgirl, Aquaman, and Justice League. After DC Comics, he worked as an editor at Dynamite Entertainment, working on the Project Superpowers series as well as with Immortal Studios. He was then editor-in-chief at Aftershock Comics before the publisher announced bankruptcy. In March of 2024, he was made editor-in-chief at Ghost Machine. Harvey Richards worked at DC Comics for over 2 decades and contributed to a wide range of titles across the DC universe, working on projects that span both mainstream superhero series and licensed properties. He worked on titles such as Superman, Trinity of Sins, Titans, Scooby-Doo, and Suicide Squad. Richard made headlines when he quit DC in 2019 and accused management of stifling his promotion prospects due to racism. Executive editor Bobby Chase has had a long and varied career in the comic book industry. She worked for Marvel throughout the 80s and 90s. In 1995, she was one of Marvel Group's editors-in-chief, the highest level a female editor has ever achieved at the company. In 2015, she moved over to DC to become Vice President of Talent Development until 2020. For DC, she has edited such titles as Batgirl, Nightwing, Teen Titans, and Red Hood. The Justice League in the 31st century are said to be clones. However, this isn't exactly the case. Project Cadmus, a genetic engineering corporation, had held the genetic material of the greatest past original Justice League heroes for over a millennium. They used those samples to recreate Superman, Green Lantern, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. Cadmus didn't clone the Justice League entirely from scratch using just DNA. They used living donor bodies as templates. The genetic material was spliced into these donors' bodies, effectively overwriting their biology and identity to create the League. The cloning process used by Cadmus was flawed and rushed, leading to imbalances in personality and memory retention among the entire Justice League 3000 lineup. Clones in comics have been used as far back as the mid-70s. Amazing Spider-Man 149 from October of 1979 features the debut of Spider-Clone, a clone of Peter Parker created by the villain the Jackal. This story became the foundation for one of Marvel's most controversial and expansive arcs, the Clone Saga, which was revisited in the 1990s. Other famous clones includes copies of Bart Allen, Doomsday, Cable, Emma Frost, Gwen Stacy, Jean Grey, Silver Surfer, and Wolverine. Starro made his first appearance in The Brave and the Bold number 28 in March of 1960, created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sekowsky. The issue was also the first appearance of the Justice League of America. We'd have to wait another 17 years until we see Starro again, this time in an 11-page Aquaman story in Adventure Comics 451 between May and June of 1977. It appeared again only 4 years later in a two-part story of Justice League of America 189 and 190 from 1981. It made several other appearances in several different titles and universes within the DC Comics multiverse. Experimentation and exploitation of Starro was one of the main plot points in James Gunn's 2021 The Suicide Squad. Starro is an alien conqueror and humanoid central mind commanding spores. An asexual creature, Starro's spores are capable of generating clones that act in accordance with the original's will. Clones are parasites by nature and can attach themselves to a humanoid's face and subsequently take over the host's central nervous system. Originally, the first Starro could transform Earth's starfish into duplicates of itself equal to it in size and power. Interestingly enough, a Japanese sci-fi film from 1956 called Warning from Space features Starro-like aliens called Parians who come to warn humanity that a rogue planet is on a collision course with Earth. It's worth noting that Starro co-creator Gardner Fox was known for his extensive knowledge of science fiction and maintained a vast collection of books and magazines, which he often drew upon for inspiration. This background suggests that he may have been aware of Warning from Space, but without direct statements from Fox or Sekowsky, any connection remains speculative. This wild and wacky offshoot of the Justice League series, which is most definitely not a continuation of Legion of Superheroes timeline, although it could very well be if it wanted to, is a fun trip to take if you don't mind seeing your favorite superheroes in a completely different light. Taking a page right out of Justice League International, these heroes aren't exactly who you may want to call in an emergency. Writers Giffen and DeMatteis are at it again in this goofy future version of the Justice League, but this time we've got a gender-confused Guy Gardner, egotastic Superman who can't fly, and a Batman who doesn't really want to play superhero. I quite enjoyed this limited series run. I found the writing to be fresh and was obviously not meant to take itself too seriously. I mean, think about it. You have a planet full of Starro drones, a Supergirl who's took the long way around to get to the year 3001, and the Flash calling Superman Clarky. Yeah, this isn't going to be for everyone. As usual, Howard Porter always delivers. The pages are overflowing with colors and action. There's no wasted space in this issue. It's a treat for the eyes. So if you don't hold the Trinity in too high a regard, I definitely check this series out. Unfortunately, time hasn't yet started to impact its cover price too much. I'm seeing near mint versions of this comic selling for $3.99 on eBay. MyComicShop.com has some selling for $2.50, and SilverAgeComics.com has it selling for $1.99. In 2015, DC was in a healthy financial state. It was part of the larger Warner Brothers Entertainment, which had a strong market value. While a specific financial statement for DC in 2015 isn't really available, it's reasonable to infer that it was part of the larger and financially successful company. Warner Brothers Discovery reported market value of $69 billion indicates a significant level of financial strength. This suggests DC, as a major division within that structure, was likely financially stable and contributing positively to the parent company's overall performance. In 2015, DC sold approximately 25 million comic book units through Diamond Comic Distributors, generating an estimated 96 million in revenue. It had a 26% unit market share and a 25% dollar market share of the total comic book market. The top 5 DC comics sold that year were predominantly Batman-related titles such as Batman 40, 41, and 44, Justice League of America #1, and Dark Knight 3, The Master Race #1. Despite these numbers, DC announced a line-wide relaunch called DC Rebirth just 1 year later. The new line would launch with an 80-page one-shot called DC Universe Rebirth, written by Jeff Johns. The relaunch was meant to bring back the legacy and heart many felt had been missing from the DC characters since the launch of New 52. Rebirth brought huge success, both financially and critically. In 2015, the North American comic book industry experienced significant growth, with total sales of comics and graphic novels reaching $1.03 billion, a 10% increase over the previous year. This marked the first time since the early 90s that the industry surpassed the billion-dollar mark. The surge was largely driven by the expanding audience for comics, including increased interest from women and younger readers. While print sales flourished, digital comics experienced a downturn. After 6 consecutive years for growth, digital comic sales in North America declined by 10% in 2015, falling to 90 million. This decrease was attributed to market saturation of digital devices and a slowdown in new digital consumers. I was surprised to see this volume of ads in this comic from 2015. I assume the uptick in sales justified it. This issue has ads for Blu-ray DVDs, Wrigley 5 gum, DC subscription services, cable TV, LootCrate.com, remember them? Eagle Moss collections, various DC titles, Munchkin Steampunk Deluxe, Mars Snickers chocolate bars, and PS4's Batman: Arkham Knight. Released that year, Arkham Knight is an action-adventure game developed by Rocksteady Studios and published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. The game is presented from a third-person perspective, with a primary focus on Batman's melee combat, stealth abilities, detective skills, and gadgets. Batman: Arkham Knight received a generally favorable review from critics for the PlayStation 4. This week I wanted to find a comic shop with an interesting name to match our deep dive. I couldn't find a store named after Starro or a member of the JLA, but I did find this comic shop located in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia called Strange Adventures. This Canadian comic shop chain was named after the classic DC Comics anthology series Strange Adventures, which ran from 1950 to 1973. The store has received multiple accolades, including the Will Eisner Spirit of Comics Retailer Award. If you're in the Dartmouth area, I recommend checking this one out at 101 Portland Street in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, or visit strangeadventures.com. If you had fun hanging out with the weirdest Justice League this side of the 31st century, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to Read the Freaking Comics, and ring the bell so you never miss a deep dive. Got a favorite forgotten gem, chaotic crossover, or clone catastrophe you want me to cover? Drop it in the comments. And hey, support real comic creators, buy physical issues, tip your local comic shop, and follow the amazing writers and artists behind these stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, read the freaking comics.